Today is Friday, August 8th, and this week has been very eventful here in Donetsk. On Monday, there were reports that the Ukrainian army had taken control of the suburb of Donetsk, Mariinka. There were also reports that they haven't been able to achieve control. So I went out to try to investigate myself, and as I started to get closer, within about 5 kilometers of Mariinka, there were a group of Donetsk People's Republic soldiers unloading from a military vehicle and running across the streets in kind of a bit of disarray, and they started stopping the vehicles and telling people that there was just a rocket attack, or grad attack as they would put it. And this was in the Petrovsky district. We went ahead to try to locate the area that had been hit by the rockets, and we made our way to a residential area, and there were many homes that were that took direct hits by the rockets. Some of the homes were completely engulfed in flames. Some were already almost completely burned down. And it was an interesting sight to see, because at the same time a very horrible sight to see, but many of the occupants of the neighborhood banded together and started to bring buckets and throw buckets of water on the different homes that were burning, trying to save their homes, their neighbors' homes. And it was a very horrible situation, but also showed, how good people are still out there and how humanity does exist. Some of the craters in the area, I could see the tube, or the remnants of the rocket is still in the crater, and one of the locals brought a little twisted piece of metal that they called a piece of the grad rockets, and stayed there for a few hours and documented what I could and talked to as many of the peoples as possible. And they were very upset that the Ukrainian government was doing this to the people. And some of them were also upset with the Russian government, specifically naming Putin for not coming to, in their words, help the Donetsk People's Republic like he did in Crimea. But it was definitely a hard situation being there. There were reports of one serious injury, a man that was hit by shrapnel. Luckily, there was no reports of casualties at that time, but with all the damage, I think it takes some time to really realize who's been hurt or killed. And the next morning, I woke up, and we were, me and 2 colleagues, were trying to see some of the day's events, and we had heard there was some more attacks in the same area that residential neighborhood was in Petrovsky, only a bit farther away. So we went out to investigate what we could, and we came across an outdoor market that had taken 1 or 2 direct hits. There was one clear crater, but there was another area of the market that very close to the crater that also looked like there was a second impact, and it appeared to be some sort of artillery fire. The market was in complete disarray, and some of the different cabins of the markets were just destroyed. There were pieces of children's toys, sunglasses, clothes, everything just torn up and destroyed around the market. Um, we were told there wasn't any deaths at that specific point, but we were told about a half a kilometer away there was a bus stop that was hit, and locals told us there was a man decapitated there. I myself did not make it to that location because when we were leaving the markets, a local told us that there was a school also hit around the same time as the markets, in very close proximity to that area, so they showed us where it was. And sure enough, I got there and took a tour of the school, and it was clearly a children's educational facility. There were children's books, children's paintings on the walls. There was even I went into the English training classroom, and some of the rooms had Ukrainian emblems up on the wall, and some of the other classrooms were just covered in glass, pieces of glass sticking into the walls and the floors like knives thrown, because the impact on the outer part of the school was so intense it just threw the glass like knives. Luckily, school wasn't in session. And eventually made my way back to the hostel that I was staying at, and in the morning, it was actually yesterday morning at this point, and was awakened to many explosions very close to the hostel. I can't count how many because I was so sound asleep when they started. Luckily I had my bulletproof vest handy and just threw that on quick, and after about 20 minutes of silence after the shelling had stopped, went out to investigate and found an apartment complex about 400 meters away that was hit very directly, and there was a small fire going, and there were children's toys strewn about the area in front of the building because the impacts were, I believe, on the 8th or 9th floor, and there was emergency crews, fire departments, they're trying to stabilize the area and keep people safe. There were many crossword puzzle books all throughout the street in front of the apartment building. It was a strange sight. And eventually I made it up to the one of the apartments that took a direct hit, and the wall of the kitchen was missing, just overlooking the street below, 8 or 9 stories up, and went through, and there was a child's bedroom that the impact was so intense from the kitchen of the apartments, it actually knocked all the doors off of every room in the apartments, including the child's room. And there was just so much destruction. I mean, that family's life, you know, as far as the possessions of their life was 70–80% just destroyed in a matter of a tenth of a second. It's a real shame. And at that point, went back downstairs and did some more investigating around it. And it is important to note that in the area of the apartment buildings that were hit, there's also the Donetsk People's Republic. It's a military compound that's located about 400 meters, maybe 300 meters from the apartments that were hit. But I think when you're aiming such a weapon that can cause so much destruction, maybe you should have a little better idea it's what you're aiming at and where your ammunition's going to land, and just, you know, keep a regard for civilian life. And in any case, there needs to be a better way to handle this war. I mean, war is hell, as they say, but so many people are dying now here, and something needs to happen to bring this war to a conclusion.